never thought in a million years that anybody would be against this idea. Because again, I have this belief that, we're all healthcare workers and we have a common goal of doing the right thing and keeping our patients safe, because that's what's grilled in us every day. We have this safety meeting every day at work about keeping the patients and the staff and the community safe. So I never in a million years thought that it would be looked at in any negative light. And I didn't really get any really pushback from any of my colleagues, so to speak. It wasn't from them.
What was that environment like? I mean, if, as you're having lunch for things, it must be a conversation that you thought was interesting. Was everybody engaging in the conversation?
No. There were many that kind of laughed at me and said, "Oh, you're being too emotional about this. Deb, you always care too much. You're looking too much into this. Why are you wasting your time?" And I'm like, because it's the right thing to do, guys. So I had a few that really, kind of shook me off and said that, I was just being ridiculous about it. But I had quite a few that supported this, and they were like, "No,
makes sense."
But again, they know me. That's kind of person I am. I tend to be the one that's very kind of outspoken in my hospital when I see things that need maybe to be looked into or something that I get passionate about, because that's my role as a leader.
So as a leader, then obviously you thought, well, I would normally be involved. I'm in, committees all the time. I put out protocols. So you decided to sort of reach out to the whole staff in the hospital in an email and just let them know what you were doing. And what issues did you sort of address in that email to everyone in the hospital?
So the original email, are we talking about the original email that I sent out? And I basically told my administrative leaders, people above me, this is what I'm going to be doing.
Right, we have it here. We wanted to address concerns surrounding the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and being associated. I can't read that. This is thrombocytopenia. You're discussing sort of thrombocytopenia as an issue that you're seeing, which is reduced platelets, right? The platelets sort of drop to the floor. So what was it we were saying in that email?
There was an email sent to us kind of globally to the medical staff about a syndrome called VITT, V-I-T-T. And it was, if I remember, it was at the bottom of an email. And I kind of saw it and I said, well, geez, I don't really understand what they're trying to say, because it wasn't very detailed. So I went and looked it up and I found a journal article talking about it and kind of gave a protocol of how you're supposed to approach these patients when they come into the hospital. So I sent kind of a rebuttal email to those people involved to kind of let them know, I'm going to just elaborate on this further, because if you do the wrong thing, you could potentially harm the patient. So I added additional things we really should be looking at based on this journal article I looked at. And that's kind of when things turned for
so
different, I guess.
You're trying to warn your hospital. And I'm going to assume, like, one of the things I know was a big issue, and there's this turning point for people that got it, thrombocytopenia, drop in platelets. But a lot of times, and what was so interesting and rare with the vaccine injury compared to what we see in nature, was you're getting blood clots and thrombocytopenia at the same time. Blood clots usually caused by too many platelets, or platelets coming together, creating blood clots. So you give drugs to thin that out, right? To drop the platelets in order to get rid of the blood clots. But in this circumstance, I'm sure people died because there was sort of this alarm that went off. You can't give heparin. You can't give, a blood thinner, because they're already having issues with not having enough platelets. So is that a part of what you were trying to say?
Right.
You could kill somebody if you're not aware of this issue.
Right, and there's a blood test that you're supposed to order kind of immediately if you suspect the syndrome based on these criteria. So that's all I was trying to do, is just kind of elaborate a little bit further on that original email, just to, because again, this could be very detrimental to a patient if we miss this. And this is something that obviously they're seeing around the world, that they wrote an article about it. I think it was in the Journal of Cardiology, or one of the cardiology journals. So I said, geez, if they're seeing it across the country, this is something I think we really need to talk about maybe a little bit further, so we're all educated on what we should be seeing.
But it's a vaccine injury. I mean, you're discussing something that happens from vaccine injury. You're talking to the entire staff about it, so they're looking out for it. Your people above you were not very happy about that.
Right, because they said that I should have kind of directed that email to my direct leader.
Okay.
And let that person.
We actually have this conversation. So, folks, here is the actual phone call that took place. We've all been in those moments where the boss is not happy with what's happened. In this case, I want you to think about what's being discussed. She's trying to save people.